one round of posing and my mouth like immediately goes dry. I can feel like water just starts to shift around. Now you feel like your mouth getting dry, you're like for sure gonna be getting crispy and harder as you pose. We're at, you stop it. So not quite as sharp as this morning.
No fuller.
Huh? No. I feel like the abs lose it. It's the midsection that goes first.
What's your weight at right now?
This is 227.8. One day out from the Vancouver Pro, so I've already had one meal in and about my normal fluid intake. It's around half a gallon of water, some coffee too. So we're just, today it's just about doing check-ins meal by meal, adjusting my food up and down based on making sure my body weight gets up high enough in the afternoon before bed, so I drop down to what I want to be at, which this morning I was 226.6, which is a little lower, but there's been a shift going on. So I'm fuller, but also dropping some water off my legs. So that's why even you're getting fuller, weight might come down. But off just one meal and fluids, I'm trying to gauge where I want to be stage weight wise. Going through this like practice pump up backstage, looking at these visuals. It's good everywhere else, but my midsection is what starts to go. So basically what I've been doing probably will be cut in half on show day. But the rest of the day is just eat, rest, tan, and nothing too much more exciting than what you probably have already seen. So I'm gonna have that's really it. I'm trying to think of what else there is to do, just to eat and rest. So enjoy the one day out.
The first pro show that John and I were together was the New York Pro, and this was back in, oh gosh, when was it? It was either 2017 or 2018, I can't quite remember the year, but it was his first pro show that we were together in a relationship, and he didn't do well at that show. I think he got just outside the first call out, maybe 6th or 7th or something like that. It wasn't the outcome he wanted, of course. There was a bunch of stuff that went wrong. His tan was terrible on stage. He wasn't in shape. It just wasn't the outcome he wanted. But he has this, ever since I met him, he's had this kind of uncanny resilience. No matter if, there was a setback or a failure or whatever it was, a life event even, he can easily take it, look at it from just a whole different perspective than I ever would. I'm always the one to err on the more negative side of things, which I think that's kind of where we balance each other out. He can look at things and see like the positives that he can take from it. So he's kind of had this like really uncanny resilience to go through a situation like that New York Pro and come back stronger and stronger every single time. So as far as shows go, it's like every single time he's done a show, whether he's done poorly or he's done great, he can take that experience and he just gets stronger from it. And I have seen this from that first time at the New York Pro all the way up to, you know, every show after that. He has just gotten more resilient and stronger show after show. And I think going into this third open show now, like he is at that like height of his resilience, and it really shows in kind of like all aspects of how he, you know, handles his prep, how he handles his business, and I'm just really excited to see it come to fruition. So stepping away from competing, I know is the right decision for me, although it did take me a while to come to, you know, kind of be okay with stepping away from competing, because I put so much into it for a very long time. But at the same time, I know I'm better as like playing the supportive role of a competitor versus being the competitor myself. But it is nice at the same time that I can be very much plugged into bodybuilding and be there for him as that supporter versus, you know, doing it myself. So I was trying to explain this to him last night, and I couldn't really put it into words, because it's kind of like we have grown together, but it's been such a kind of like organic, natural growth that we haven't really had to work on. You know, it's like if he's lacking in some areas or forgets to do things, like say for instance packing for one of these trips, he's bound to forget something. So where he's lacking or what he's forgetting, I easily like pick up on it and like kind of like fill in whatever he's forgetting, and he kind of vice versa, he does the same for me. But it's hard to put into words because it has been such like an organic partnership and growth together over the years. So I know his time in bodybuilding, that time it's coming to its end, you know, and we both know that, we've discussed it. But the way that he puts his all into everything that he does, I know he's not always going to step, he's always going to be plugged into bodybuilding in some aspect, right, in some kind of way. But whatever he does decide to do after bodybuilding, I know he's just going to take whatever he had in bodybuilding at the time and put it into whatever it is. And we've talked about what that might be. We don't know. He has so many areas of interest, whether that's going back to school or picking up, he used to be into martial arts, he might pick that up again. But I just see him putting 100% into whatever it is he chooses to do. So I definitely think my favorite thing about him as a competitor is that resilience that I was talking about, because you don't see that a lot. You really don't. Not just from competitors, but just like people in general. And I honestly try and take some of that from him and like learn from him how to be more resilient, because I know it's somewhere like an area that I lack in. So I think that's my favorite thing about him as a competitor, is just being able to come back stronger time and time again. As a husband, I think my favorite thing about him as my husband is how supportive he is. I have about 1,000 hobbies and he will support me in whatever I am into in the certain moment, whether that's my art or playing guitar or cooking, or if I want to take up some like crazy hobby, he's always so supportive of me and believes that I can really do anything. And that's how I even became a pro, was because he believed in me. So I think that's my favorite thing about him as a husband and just as a human.
start with this. The abs flexed looks better than I thought it would.
Okay.
I will say, I think it's worth the reset to me. I just think it's that much bigger.
Like, what do? You could have crunched down, or you reset.
And then go again.
Yeah. But you only have how many breaths do you need before you need to go then hold your breath again, versus I can stay in that shot and keep breathing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like
it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Have you practiced going from pulled up to blowed down though?
I can do it. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, it's not that bad. It didn't look uncomfortable or clumsy to do. Like you went into it easy.
And also, I probably would bring the arms down and go back into it to do it.
So reset it
So
and then
like,
into the big. So that's quick. That's nice. You're not struggling to like pull it back down. You're gonna do it.
oh, I can pull it down way faster. I was doing it like really controlled to make sure I had the ab.
Okay.
I can show you the other way. Like,
Okay. So you can go back and forth very easy.
yeah,
Then yeah, don't even bother with the pull back down. If you can do it like that, then it makes sense.
yeah. Now the front relaxed.
Yeah, this is the one that's gonna be a little bit more.
The lats hang.
That's pretty impressive, man. Can you hold that for a good while? Yeah, man, it just looks so full when you're pulled down. You know what I mean? It's not stretched out. Like it's like denser.
You look more muscular. Like there's more detail in your center versus that kind of flattens you out, right? I get it. But it shrinks my total silhouette. However, the taper is dramatic, right? I'll have the smallest waist on stage, I think, but it really shrinks my width down when these guys are bigger frame than me. But it's like, it's a relaxed pose. So it's like, you can go back and forth between the two just to save yourself, right?
You could.
That's what Heidi does.
I'm not gonna lie, pulled down just looks so impressive. Because think about it, like structurally, like you're gonna hit the front double pulled up, you're gonna hit the front lat spread pulled up. I like the pull down, but I think you could go back and forth easy.
I like it pulled down. It would save me a ton for when I really need it for that front double.
What has John meant to me? Man, it's kind of hard to describe that in words, right? Like mentor, big brother, like a multiple different things. Family would probably be the best thing to use to describe him, right? I think it came from just like a shared passion for being the best version of yourself no matter given the situation, and being able to relate on that obsessive pursuit of being that best version of yourself no matter what. And just kind of like over the years, the amount of times like he's had my back and just, vouched for me and given me opportunities and whatever it may be, being involved in this process. And family would probably be the best word. People say like, you don't always get to choose your family, but I think the closest family that we have is the ones that we choose to keep around us. And there's a reason he's one of very few people that are in my tight-knit circle. And just a family member, and would probably be the best way to describe it. Like it's been an awesome journey so far, and it's like just cracking the surface of what we're capable of together, Yeah, so there's multiple aspects to his journey, right? Because he's got the competitor at a high level aspect that most people don't have when they're also teaching. So which I think is why we resonate so much together, is I love research. I clearly went to grad school, did research in a couple different labs, but there's an anecdotal piece that has to be, taken a step back from the lab and being able to integrate that into what we actually do as coaches and what we do with people on an N=1 basis. And this is where I think John's impact starts to push the industry forward. It's like just this group of people that think in a similar way that we've created through J3 University and J3U Coaching. The impact is process-based thinking to push the industry forward, which is, again, just another place that we resonate with. It's just like our actions pushing the industry forward, and he represents that with his athlete journey. He represents that with his educator journey. He represents that with his coaching journey. And it just impacts the industry on multiple different aspects that allows us to do what we love and help as many people as we can. I kind of first got to know John in 2017, right? And having done a prep with him, or a couple prep processes with him, but one that we actually put on stage, and helping him, or I guess watching him through his prep process and being sort of a second eye through some of them. Just the objectiveness of the decision making and not allowing the emotion to take over, because we're very passionate people about what we love to do, and it's hard to remove emotion from something that you're extremely passionate about. And the processes that we've built to be able to teach have now served the athlete journey, where we're able to now continue to refine those processes through, you know, the people that I coach, his athlete journey, and everything along those lines. And the predictability in the objective decision making is kind of where I see the largest change. Is there's just such a depth of understanding that it creates better decision making, and obviously that's a product of having to go to the depth that we do in order to teach at the level we do with J3 University and everything like that. But it's definitely the consistency in the decision making and the objectivity with it, because it's an industry that you have traditions passed down and it's not always explained why. So it leads to, you know, oh, I saw this work, so we should probably test this or try this, with maybe not the best rationale behind it. And I think there's never a decision that's made that doesn't have some sort of reason behind it. And that's probably the biggest change from, you know, 2017 John to now John is, and just even like, you can see it in the way he talks too, right? Like you talk to him about a topic, there's always that hesitation reserved to make sure there's not something that could conflict with it before the question's answered or the replies come back. So yeah, it's definitely that objectivity with the process. He's never an echo chamber. It's easy to create echo chambers of people that just agree with your thought processes. And I think that's where earlier on, like, that process of developing thought process has to be challenged. You have to be ready for being able to be challenged, no matter how much you believe in something works. It's like being able to see the other side of the coin. He's always going to be that other side of the coin to make sure that the thought processes that we have pan out and make sense. And I think that over time, what that's developed into is, I don't want to say us constantly going back and forth and being that devil's advocate, but there's always some sort of back and forth of, are we considering all the situations? I think that's probably, like, from a development standpoint, probably been the most eye-opening thing, because now, like, with a coaching process, if I look at my coaching now versus maybe my coaching in 2020, it's like the variety and how many different ways that I produce results is a large product of, one, testing it in real time and winning in real time with it, but two, having those argumentative discussions and growing as a part of those argumentative discussions. It's not argumentative in a bad way, it's argumentative in a good way, right? It's kind of how we challenge each other. So that would certainly be something that, from a developmental standpoint, has been huge. Is just that introspection to always be able to see from other different viewpoints.
So this will be the nightcap for one day out, leading to the perfect physique to wake up to. I've been doing a little bit of oats every night because just the fiber in it does help sustain it overnight. I think it slows down digestion. And so there's 25 grams of oats, 60 grams of cream of rice. I just mix that all in, cook it at once, add in 50 grams of whey. There's also 30 grams of raisins in here, 30 grams of peanut butter, and then 10 grams of dark chocolate. So totaling up, we're at like 130 grams of carbs, 20 grams of fat, around 40 grams of protein. This will be the last meal for one day out. Every day food has been creeping up, so this is kind of what you consider more of a linear load into a show, so just keeping body weight up as I need to. We started off this peak week around 500 grams of carbs, 45 grams of fat, 300 grams of protein. Today we hit 660 grams of carbs, 90 grams of fat. Protein just stayed the same, and so just keep moving it up. Didn't have to go as high as last time, which is nice, and my waist still feels small tonight. So show day tomorrow, I'm expecting to wake up with just a little baby wasp waist. But anyway, that's one day out. See you guys on show day. So looking back over these past open shows, and what's funny, I was just talking to Luke about on this competition day last year, I was doing a 212 show, right? So we're doing the Atlanta Pro, won that show. That was my last 212 show. So a year later, here we are, 3 open shows in. And my thing have always been, since like I had a bad stage look in 2020, was always bring the next best look and not getting on stage any less than I previously had. So I absolutely have looked back through what I brought to Legion in Reno and even what I brought to Toronto 5 weeks ago, and making sure that improvements have been made. And that was walking every single day like it's been prep in an off season, because I know I don't have a lot of time left in doing this. So, and the progress has been substantial. So from looking back at Legion, I walked on stage feeling really confident in my condition and bringing a lot more size than I've ever brought. In Toronto, I felt good about it, but I didn't feel like the condition was as sharp as I brought in the past, but size was there and improvements were there for an overall better version. But there's nothing like walking on stage when you're really, really sharp and feel confident in that. And that's what I know I feel like I have walking into this stage, where I have the condition that you can hit your poses and it all comes to life easily. You're not having to like overflex to make it happen. The size is there that I didn't have even for Legion. So I'm bigger, just as conditioned, or I'd say better in ways, because I have size to fill out more. So the improvements are there, and I'm excited just for them to be displayed on a stage that can represent like what we actually see like in our gym photos and everything. So it's I know everyone, it seems cliche to say, oh, it's my best version, but that's what I've always wanted to make sure was coming to stage, was the next better version of myself.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like a symmetry piece to kind of discuss. I think that's where he beats a lot of people, especially with a lot of the improvements in the waist. And we were just talking about how you change a lot of your back shots, right? It's like, it's such a game changer to have those back shots be like showstoppers when you're in the open, standing next to guys that are slightly taller than you, potentially slightly bigger. And we know he's going to show up sharp. Like, that's his calling card. He's going to make everybody sit on stage look flat. But with the midsection control to go with the sharpness that I think is honestly league sharper than Toronto, like just looking at photos, it's pretty apparent. That's where he beats people. Is he's going to be balanced. The waist is so much smaller. And you just look at like the direction the physique opens. The physiques that are winning an open are headed. You look at like the Derek winning the Olympia over everybody else this year, like that's the direction they want this open class to go. And I think John fits that mold so much better now with the improved back shots, the waist control being better than it's ever been, even being so much heavier than it ever was in 212. It's a physique that's put together front, back, side. It's there's not really a gap when you go through all the poses.
It's like what Luke and I have done with J3U, and it all started with like, how do we get better? And it's still like, I've been competing for 12 years and I still make mistakes, but I still have to always ask myself, like, how do I get better? So like Toronto was fixing some poses, because it's like my front lat spread, my side try, like there was areas where I could bring a better version and completely change how I do my side try, and it looks substantially better. Even my front lat spread too. So even if this far in the game, like, we're always finding ways to get better, and we just want to like openly share this stuff too with everyone so they can get better, and we see the whole bodybuilding sphere just elevate in the physique standard. Yeah, like starting off, like having coaching, this is such like an engulfing part of my life, and I know for everyone that does compete, it is. Some people, you start, it's kind of a hobby and you love to do it, but there's still other parts that take a big piece, whether it's family or your career that's outside of bodybuilding. But for me, this has definitely developed into, it is all encompassing. It is my life, my business. It's all about bodybuilding. And having coaches earlier on, you extend a big piece of your life, your relationship into those individuals. And to be let down, it hurts you at a personal level, because it is all personal in bodybuilding. It's hard to disconnect from that. So taking my own full reins coaching, I know if I make a mistake, it's on me, and I can swallow that and be okay with it. However, I never want to be, and there was a time where I would say I was a bit disconnected from others' opinions, because that trust I couldn't yet extend to someone. And I'm fortunate enough now to have second eyes, and there's a small circle of people. It's basically Luke. I'll mention Chris Tuttle because I like to pick his brain as well too, but it's invaluable to have someone to trust at that level where can collaborate and just banter ideas back and forth. And like between Toronto and this show, like I started changing some variables that was too many at once, and it blurred what I was looking at. It got confusing for me, and I just had to send it all to like Luke, look at these pics and what I'm doing. And he's like, just he knew, he's followed my process long enough to where he knows what's even worked for me just through our conversations. And he's like, you know, from your past, like this has worked, like get back. Now you're like, okay, you're right. I set these things up and was able to just like hold them for a few days and just get a clearer picture of things. So to have someone like that, you really need it. Yes, we self-coach, but you need people in your corner where you can also still build from and gain other perspectives. So like from a competition side, Luke's been awesome, and he's a top level coach, you know, in my eyes, that I would trust him going into Olympia or whatever level I'm competing at for those opinions. From a business perspective too, like my business is my baby. It's just like my bodybuilding. It's our life. It's for Renee and I. So to have Luke be a part of that, I know he's as committed to it as I am, that is part of his family and his life, which to share that with someone it's awesome. It's something that you don't get very often, to do something that you're passionate about, that you love, and to have others involved in it that have just as much heart and passion for it too.
Yeah, I think, and I referred to this earlier, but the obsessive pursuit is kind of where you don't find like-minded individuals, and I think it's just an honor and privilege to be a second eye. Obviously, like, John's running the show, but like if he needs someone to kind of come in and say anything, like I'm happy to be there. And it's just nice to be here. It's been so long since I've actually done it in an in-person setting, right? It's always like a text message here or there and photos and stuff, which works. But I talked about this in the original interview, just like kind of by myself, like what we've built just came from a shared obsessive passion for being the best version of ourselves, no matter the cards we've been dealt. And really, it's just allowed us to find what works at a level that we can apply it in so many different ways. And I think that's just the coolest thing to see, is something that may be seen as a negative in so many different places is like a shared passion that has grown into this massive entity, and I just can't wait to see it come. A lot of this work come to fruition on stage. I think tomorrow is the best John across the board that we'll have ever seen on stage so far.
It's funny, like Luke and I started just basically, just like you train with your bros in the gym, you're training, you're kind of shooting the shit with each other off what's been working, what she finds helpful. And that's what we did, but we were just like at nerd level status to where like the thought process goes so far that we end up with like a university course out of it. Yeah. But it's where meatheads shooting the shit that created something of explaining how to do things. So, but it's cool to have these moments that come to like a spearhead where you can see it all, like now the coaching, the education all come to it like fruition on a stage look.
It's like we're passionate people. It's so hard to remove the emotion from the process. And I referred to this in like my individual interview, but like I think the best thing we've ever done is the not the argumentative, but the devil's advocate conversations that we have, where we present a topic and an idea or a process, and whoever's presenting it the opposite will try to look at the other side of the coin and potentially different ways or better ways that could be proposed to do it in certain situations that might not be the exact situation we're talking about. And I think that's built frameworks, not only for us to teach from, but to address any problems that we're coming into as far as like a coaching perspective, and being confident in that objectivity that this is everything to us, but we can always refer to these systems and these processes that we've built, where 2017 John, there's potentially some emotion that drove some decision, where 2024 John is like strictly, and I hate to use the word data, but there's so much data and experience built up, like there's not a decision that doesn't have an exact reason why it's happening. And it's really cool to see. It's just so predictable at this point. It's the passion drove a top level process, and it's just allowing it to show in its full capacity.
I think for both of us too, like not just for what this is my prep, right? But
right.
Our for like coaching as well, is I think we used to look for confirmation bias. Like we had things that had worked for us in the past that we're looking for to justify through research, or justify the protocol that we were doing. Now it's flipped in that we see such a spectrum of what works, and always keeping more of an open mind, even though we are very data driven, but it's extremely open to knowing how much variability we see in what works and what doesn't for people. So playing devil's advocate is the perfect case of it, of like Luke bringing someone up, but you're like, oh yeah, but what about this? And you're like, oh man, okay. It's kind of like taking a jab at each other, but not really. But you realize that we can't just get boxed in trying to prove our own protocols right, is that we just need flexibility in the approach. And that's when you see these physiques really progressing.